Seidman. First, I want to thank everyone for giving me an opportunity to speak about the treatment of infertility with classical Chinese medicine. From my yesterday, the two fellows here took me from the airport, and I got the chance to speak with them. I really got the impression that this school is very special. The school of classical Chinese medicine is not the average. So it's what in Chinese we say it's a lot of hidden dragons and tigers. So what I want to do today is really share with you my experience and my contemplation. And so by no means is that the truth of any sort. It's just I want to share with you my ideas and my knowledge. Some of which didn't come from books, came from me from inner contemplation. So that's why it might be things that you've never heard before. And it's just for me to share with you so you can contemplate on it. I wrote here first a prescription for a patient that came yesterday before I went on the plane. I saw a few people, and I wanted to write it right at the beginning and ask you to think about it. Don't say anything like, what would I write this prescription for? Like, what kind of condition? This is a patient which is not infertility. She got pregnant with me a couple of years ago, and now she had some other problems that, can you help me? And I saw her yesterday. So I wrote this. This is like a starter formula. But just think, what would it be? What would you use it for? And remind me at the end of the day, when we finish with all the theory part and the practical part, maybe come with an answer then, right, and see. And if I forget, just remind me about this formula. Ask me, what was it? I want to start with the... introduce myself with a story. My whole training of Chinese medicine was very unconventional, so that's why I want to introduce myself in an unconventional way too. This story, and I want the story focused at the end of this word, clinician. Before I came here, when Tim invited me, thank you, he said we want to have a lot of practical stuff. I want to share with you this story, that when I started with Chinese medicine maybe 20 years ago in Israel, then in New Zealand, then in China, for me things started differently. So I started Chinese medicine, the regular TCM style theories, and I got really excited. Yin, yang, 5 elements, the metal controls, the wood, etc., etc., and I was really happy and excited. And then I was in New Zealand studying for a while. And then my Tai Chi teacher heard that I want to go to China for the first time, and he said, I can organize for you. With the 10 words that he could speak in English, I couldn't speak Chinese, and he said, I organize China. I said, sure, great. So he organized me to go to China to stay with his family, which 20 years ago was unheard of in China, to stay with a Chinese family. It's not like today. Today is different. And I already studied Chinese medicine for a while, all in English, of course, and I was very excited. And so I got to China, to Beijing, and I spent there about 3 months living with his wife and daughter. He was an actor in the Taking Oprah. And then when they left China on a tour, he deserted. Because he deserted, his family was blacklisted. I mean, they lost their job and everything, so then they didn't care that I'd stay with them, because I was supposed to pay money. Otherwise, people wouldn't host me in their house. And but then when I stayed with them, of course, I couldn't speak a word Chinese, and they couldn't speak a word English. And I lived with them for about 3 months. And for 3 months, I couldn't understand what they want from me, nor did they. And this was the first enlightenment that I got into what really needs to be done. I said, I'm practicing Chinese medicine, or just about graduated from a formal school, and I'm in China, I want to find out about Chinese medicine, and I just can't speak to anyone. I don't know what they want from me. That was the first time that I felt something must be different. So I moved to Germany and I studied German first, and I went to the university in Freiburg to study what they call sinology, or Chinese studies, classical Chinese writing and things like that, which I found would be very essential for me if I really wanted to get going with the medicine. And then I went to China back and forth. I lived in China again many times. And I moved to the U.S. at the end of 97, and all this time, all these years in 99, I went back to Nanning. I met Liu Lifeng, which was another enlightenment for me, to further study the classics, etc., etc., all the way until about 2007 when I joined the doctoral program. For the first time, I went to a school in America for Chinese medicine. All these years, I was reading and grinding and studying the classic and thinking about difficulties and seeing patients. I already had my clinic, but I never was part of what we call the scene. I just study. You study, you read, you see patients like I know. And then at that time, when I joined the doctoral program and I started meeting other people and teachers, and they said, "Oh, you know this teacher, that teacher." I didn't know anybody, and which was fine with me. But what I want to share here is when I was doing the doctoral program for the first time in almost 18 years since I started, we had discussions. There were teachers and student discussions. For the first time, I started hearing people saying, most of the students were already practicing for 20 years or 30 years. They said, "I'm a clinician, so for me, X, Y, Z, or for clinicians, ABC." And I was thinking about it for the first time. I never thought about it, nor did I have any exposure to it. There is such a concept, clinician, in Chinese medicine, which is different than something. Like in reality, from my experience, all the research into Chinese medicine, there is no such thing as clinician. Any doctor trying to find out what the truth is. The truth we find in the classics, in the philosophy, what the world is like, which at the end leads us to the practice of medicine. What should we do? But then, this exposure led me to see that there is some things that need to be clarified, and that's why I'm emphasizing this. And with team asking me, can you just make it practical? For sure, we want to make it practical. But if we don't have some background and we don't have the theory behind it, so whatever formulas I give out, it doesn't matter. The only thing that will come out of it is what I call a knowledge of he said, she said, which is what many of us practice everywhere, in Western medicine and Chinese medicine alike. Like he said, she said. So when we study the classics, at least for me personally, it doesn't matter what Zhang Zhongjing said. It doesn't matter what Li Dongyuan said, or what Zhang Zhicong, or any of these people. Each one of them were a great scholar. But when I study their work, for me it's like a grinding work. Like you grind it. At the end, at least from my martial art background, it's called that when you see a patient, 出手, your hand comes out, and this is Chinese medicine. This is the purpose. It's not that I will tell you, listen, this formula is if someone has stomach pain. So then you see a patient has stomach pain, say, okay, this formula. Why? Because Yaron said so, or Zhang Zhongjing said so. It doesn't matter who. So all the studies that we do in the classics, that's at least for me, all these years, before I became aware of this concept that there is such thing, clinician, in Chinese medicine, is to do this grind work. And the reason that we do this grind work is to get to this one thing. Which is truth. We want to get to the truth. And to get to the truth, we call it in simplified Chinese called Zhan, we solve difficulties. To get to the truth, we study the classics, we think about difficulties, and we try to solve them. At the end, there's only one reason that we do that, is to get to what we call Shan. Shan means goodness, and goodness in our aspect of medicine, it means to save people, or to save life. In my case, doing it to create healthy generations. This is called goodness. So the whole purpose of us grinding the classics and the concept and thinking about it is the end to reach to this person at the level, which is called Shan or Jura. Save people. The reason that I'm giving you all this background is especially for that we don't really want to learn the practical part of it without knowing what it is. But rather we try to find, that's for myself, when I'm trying to treat infertility or anything else, I'm trying to find out what is the truth. And because of that, the work is different. It's not becoming wide, but rather becoming deep. And I told one of my fellows recently, it's very simple, this principle. It's like water. It's either going deep or it spreads wide. If it spreads wide, it can't go deep. So spreading wide means I want to know this theory, that theory, this formula, this other formula, what formulas in the Taiyang section, what formulas in the other section, what formulas in the Song dynasty, and all kind of stuff. At the end, you have a million formulas. This is called getting really wide. But getting really wide is very, very far from this object, which is finding the truth. The truth is not very wide. It's very deep. And this is at least my experience. So the first part of this class today, we're going to talk about my theories or how I understand the classics. At the end, it leads us to understand what fertility is all about. And after that, in the second part of the class, we'll talk about formulas and some case studies. We'll have here 3 or 4 patients coming that I'll see them in front of you, and then we can discuss all this or some of the ideas that we talked about in the morning, right now. The time is a little short. We only have one day, half of it is only for the theory, so the grind work is very limited. But just keep in mind that what I really want to accomplish today is not just to throw out some theory, is to share with you how I perceive the grinding processes. I mean, grinding meaning going deeper and deeper. Not how this formula for this, that formula for that, and we kind of scatter. But this grinding is very, very important to go to this. The first question that I'm asking myself when I want to solve these difficulties, and this is most fundamental for Chinese medicine, is there a connection between the human body to nature? So some of this, the answer, of course, could be on many different levels. But if the real answer, we have to look inside. We have to contemplate and try to find out, does that make sense to us or not? And this question has to be thought about a lot. Is there a connection between the human body and nature or not? If you say not, you're not in the right classroom. Like at the end, after contemplating, which is more like a Western medicine approach, meaning the body is a self-sustained entity. But if you get to the conclusion that the body has connection with nature, then this is the foundation for all Chinese medicine, meaning researching and trying to find out what is this connection, how does it work, and this is on many different levels, including calculating the additions of the years and how the body reacts to nature, etc., etc. I was just thinking about last night. I came from New York on a plane, and there's 3 hours time difference. So I went to sleep, and 3 o'clock, just after a short time, I already can't sleep. I have this time difference. And I was thinking about it in the middle of the night, and I said, well, I have to share with you. This idea came to me. And I said, well, is there a connection or no between my body and nature? So if there is no connection, if my body is independent from nature, how come when, in a very abnormal way, I move my body from New York here to Portland, and I can't sleep the regular night hours? I'm also like still in New York time, right? Why is it? I mean, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I should be asleep. Why aren't I? This is because, as much as I can contemplate, there is a connection between my body and the time cycles that I have in New York. And if I'll stay here for a few days and move few cycles of time, then my body will adjust to the new environment. But this kind of adjusting to the environment, it's very easy right off the bat to realize that the body is connected to nature. Meaning, but even though it's not a very direct and instant connection, like I moved here, immediately I'm connected to this nature, but rather the body has a way of adjusting to nature that impact us. How we sleep, how we eat, how much we live, etc., etc. So this is like the first general introduction that I wanted to introduce myself. When we talk about infertility, yesterday one of the doctors that I collaborate with called me, and we're starting some program with natural IVFs, without drugs, just with Chinese herbs. And there's like a new method available out there. It's called IVF or IVM, in vitro maturation, etc., etc. So the doctor calls me and he says, I already have a few patients lined up. The herbs, they couldn't get pregnant. They have to do IVF. I told him without drugs is better. So he calls me and he discusses with me one of the patients. He says, well, we believe that if we give microdose of stimulation, it helps. So I tell him, no, you shouldn't give any microdose of stimulation. So he said, why not? I said, because this patient, the original yang, is very deficient. If you stimulate it, then the original yang is exhausted. Then she's not going to get pregnant. So he tells me, well, what is original yang? I explained to him kind of the things that a little bit what we'll talk about today. He said, okay, that makes sense to me, and that's what we'll do. This is in my mind, when we talk about collaboration of East meets West, what it should be like. Meaning the Chinese medicine doctor talks to the Western doctor and tells him, in our school of thought, this is ABC. And then he said, in our school, DYX. And that's how we meet at the end. So today we have, of course, a difference in knowledge that we're all aware of. But I wanted to share with you that in my practice, if you do become successful, and if it looks like your treatment is very effective, the patient wants to have it, and then, of course, you collaborate with doctors, they're very happy to hear your explanation if you can explain it in a way that makes sense. So these kind of things, trying to explain these issues in a very Chinese medicine way. Chinese medicine way doesn't just mean yin-yang. Chinese medicine way means there's great logic to it. That everyone, including a doctor, when you explain to them, they can understand it, and it doesn't sound just the alternative kind of fancy talk. And this is really what I'm occupying myself for a long, long time. I want to find out the truth. The truth meaning you can explain it to someone and it sounds like the truth. It's not, in our school it's yin-yang. With you it's eggs, ovulation. So this is really the quest that I've been looking for. How to explain myself and how to understand it. At the end reach a better effectiveness of treatment. So without further ado, I want to start with our theoretical lecture, but before starting it, I want to give a little bit introduction to a problem. The way we study our medicine today. So our Chinese medicine origin is very, very far back. So of course from the Neijing, if you try to, from a historian perspective, try to know when did it start and this, you have all kinds of data, including the first mentioning of the Neijing and the later Han book, and a little bit later Wang Fumi saying for the first time the Neijing has the Zhenjing and the Suwen, etc. And Ma Wang Dui from 168 BC excavation found out there's no Neijing, so probably it's in the 1st century BC, etc., kind of a talk. This is the historical perspective of Chinese medicine. But when you look at the history from before, that includes the Zhou dynasty, Shang dynasty, Xia dynasty, should have been a huge body of information available there that possibly is not here today anymore, for a variety of reasons. Between the different states that warring among themselves, the different scripts that were there, coming to the Qin dynasty at like 250 BC, that conquered the whole of China, etc., and Li Si that systemized the writing, the ancient script into his own script, and then the brush character that took over and replicated. So we have, in the ancient history of Chinese culture and medicine, like a very big body of knowledge that, at least from what I see, kind of got into a bottleneck at the Qin dynasty. And then we're all probably familiar with the burning of the Confucian books during that era. And even though they preserved the medical books, you have, after their demise, the Han dynasty and a reviving of, let's go back to the ancient antiquity. And then the body of knowledge gets really big again. But in this bottleneck period, there's a lot of information that possibly had changed, become warped, got lost completely, etc. So for us as Chinese medicine practitioner, what we're looking for is different than historian. It's not really what is available now. And then they're going to excavate another tomb and find something else. They said, okay, now we know that. That's not how we work, but rather we have our research into the classics, including the Confucian classics and everything that was available pre-Han time or after the Han Dynasty. But at the end, because we are looking for this truth, and this is through solving of difficulties, or what Confucianism called Go, or observing natural phenomena, at the end we're looking for the answers inside. And the whole reason that I'm reading the classics over and over again at the end is that I have my own understanding. It's not to replicate what anybody else said, it's that I have my own understanding, and this is what I'm trying to share with you today. So, there is a quote from the Shangshu, the book of historical documents, one of the Confucian classics, that says, if you don't study, it's like facing the wall. 不学墙面，历史违反. Anytime you get to an affair, it's trouble all the time. So the reason that this quote I like so much is that the studying, the classical studying, because it's wide, it's going deeper. So if you don't go deeper, everything you get to, including treating infertility and any other patients, always difficult, always problematic. So we want to start the material. And I just assume that you don't have questions. So, but we start the material. And, I'm bringing some of the slides from the course that I'm giving, so that's why I wrote notes here, which slides I want to share with you. You can see here, just for example, from the history, this is the Western Zhou dynasty, where King Wen and King Wu took over from the Shang dynasty, and these are the states, and they were very powerful all over it. But then 300-400 years later, they weakened considerably. They moved their center a little bit east. That's why it's called the Eastern Zhou dynasty. And then they would become very impotent. And the states started to be warring among themselves with all kinds of things. At the end, the Qin dynasty took over the whole thing. So when you look at 2,000 years or 3,000 years before the Han dynasty, it's not like today. Books are transmitted and information is written. But rather, there's a lot of stuff going on in sense of confusion, books lost and burned. So that's why when we look for the truth, we can't really find it. This book said that. Even the Neijing. The Neijing said that. This is it. But rather, as much as I can tell, to study the classics just to do the grind. At the end, the medicine has to come from you itself. Let me just go on. I want to share with you some pictures. This is from the Daowen civilization, which in China considered to be the most ancient, 3000 BC or so. So it's 5,000 years ago. And you can look at this, the artifacts that they have there. This is not cavemen. Like Han Dynasty was prosperous, and 2,000-3,000 BC there was some sort of Neanderthals. This is like very developed kind of civilization that we have very little left today from. But from these artifacts you can see that from the amount of artistic abilities they have. These are not simple people, so the knowledge that could have been there is vast. I'm not talking too much about script and things like that. So, but how can we access, let's say, very ancient knowledge? We're talking before the Han Dynasty, before the Huangdi Neijing. I mean, much of the information from the Neijing possibly comes from there in different ways, transmitted down. But before the formation of the real book, right, the Neijing, Weijing, before this. And one of the options, of course, is to look into ancient dictionaries. One is from the late Han Dynasty, the Shu Wenji from Shushan. The other is from the Arya, 300 BC, which is the earliest, not really dictionary, but more like encyclopedia kind of a thing. Some historian believes that it's not a dictionary at all. It's just a reference book to other ancient classics that are all gone. And in this book you have 49 different chapters, subjects that explain different things, explaining heaven, explaining earth, explaining this and that. So this is one of the options to go there. The other option, of course, is to go to the ancient script. So not what you call the classical Chinese, but rather the ancient characters, and try to find out from the pictures of them, from the symbols that they represent, what kind of ideas they could have. So some of the works that I've been doing is going to the Arya and trying to synthesize ancient texts like Hunyuan and this, and try to make my ideas of what the truth is like. I'm trying to find answers. This is all I'm trying to do. So in this, from the Arya, I want to introduce the first concept. I just want to talk about the word Ar from Arya. So the ancient script has this particle, which means to enter, and a line that goes in, which for me it means the line that goes to enter into the body. And it has also another particle next to it that means to separate or to spread out, to expand. And underneath it you have this particle, which is like a scale, and the weight distributed evenly on both sides of the scale. This is like in the Arya, the names of this word. This is an ancient character. And when I contemplate it, meaning like entering into the body and distributing evenly, this is the meaning of harmonious, being in harmony. And the other character, Ya, the left particle of it, means like a teeth joined together. And the right part is like a bird with short wings. But this is the name of the work, which means how really in reality harmony creates. All the words that they talk about is like how harmonious they fit each other. Now, in this book, I want to introduce this concept. In the Explaining Heaven section, we see this sentence. It says the spring is green heaven, green skies, or green heaven. The summer is what they call halcyon, or I translate it as brilliant heaven. And the fall is mintian, which means like grieving, or at least that's how I translate it. And the winter is called earlier heaven, or above heaven, or earlier heaven. So of course, I'm looking into the ancient characters, and I put them here on the slide too. And again, this is not a history class here, but rather we're trying to get to the principle. We're trying to find the truth, at least from classical perspective. The ancients, how do they see the truth? And so these are the ancient characters for the spring, for the summer, for the fall and winter. Here, I made them in a wrong order on purpose. But this is like spring, summer, fall, and winter, like English style, right? So we have 4 different characters, and I'm looking at them. You look at them, you contemplate it. The summer and fall have on top the sun. Right? The summer and the fall. Of the 4 seasons. What they call top. Now in the modern Chinese, they changed it. They abbreviated it to Tian, which is heaven, but the ancient one has a man and this separating character underneath it, which is the same like this one. And spreading. So the summer has this sun and a man underneath it and spreading of the energy. The fall, on the other hand, also has the sun, but has a man that has crossed legs. Or like the energy is coming back together versus spreading. Opposite to this one. But both of them has the sun on top. Like when they talk about the summer skies and the fall sky, you see that the picture has something with the sun. But when they talk about the winter sky and the spring sky, there's no sun, not in this one, definitely not in this one. So from this we start to contemplate an idea, like what, did they just in random, they said the sky is green, the sky is brilliant. In ancient time the meaning of the pictures was different. It's not to express a word, but rather to express an idea. So this is how we start to do the grind. This is how we try to get at the principle. And again, this whole research that I've been doing is to find out about the question I asked at the beginning of the class, which is, are we connected to nature or not? That's what we're trying to find out. What did the ancients realize? And see if it makes sense to us. So the summer and the fall have the sun in them, and then the energy closing and open. But when we talk about the winter, the modern character for sun above or before or earlier is this character. The ancient characters had two. This character, which means one vertical and one horizontal, and the more ancient character were like two lines. This is called above. And for me, when I look at this character, both of them mean above or earlier in time. But this is something that I'm trying to contemplate, like what do they mean? And this line for me, the bottom line, is the line of the sky. Meaning, when you portray the sky, it's like on top of, not the earth, the line of the sky. So when you say above the sky, or above it, in this case it's separated. In this case it's connected. But they are both above the sky, meaning it's somewhere outside this realm. This is called above. So when I talk about, when the ancient talks about earlier skies for the winter, which later, of course, we all know belongs to storage, hibernation, and this kind of things, they use this kind of description called an earlier sky. And it has no sun in it, of course, but this is like above heaven, something that we need to contemplate, and in my course we grind for many months. This concept is not readily available, but slowly we'll go deeper. When we talk about the spring, we have this grass growing on top. We have this particle in the middle that shows unity. Unity like heaven, man, and earth, or whatever. These three lines together means joined together. And then you have a door and a mouse underneath. The meaning of this together means a door that opens up. Opening up of the door. And there's no sun here. So I'm trying to ask myself, first of all, there's an issue here with no sun, but something that is beyond this realm, above the sky. But then you go to the spring, which is the beginning of life. Life starts. And you have this door opening up. So life is opening what? For what purpose? What is going where? Well, this is the question. Then you have unity. And then you have grass growing on top. Of course, in the spring, you have the grass coming out of the ground, etc. But when I look at all this picture and I meditate with it, and in the middle of the night, sometimes these answers come in my sleep. So the source is unknown. But I look, and it looks like this, whatever happens here, right, need to access our world. This is the connection we have to our world in spring. That's where life starts. So when door opens, something comes into this realm, into this world. We have this unity to this world, and this is the physical world. The growing grass, meaning the life that we have. Starting to contemplating this concept is later on, like in the Fire Spirit School, Zheng Qing An talks about the pre-heaven and post-heaven, things that are very hard to materialize. What is pre-heaven? And he says, and this is left a great impression on me in the introduction to one of his books, Yili Zhenchuan. He says, I studied with my master for 20 years, the I Ching and the Shang Hao Nun, etc. And only after 20 years, contemplating these classics, all of a sudden I got it. He said, I got it, that yin and yang are joined together in one Dao. The Dao, that they are joined together into one thing. Yin yang 可以知道. But I'm thinking about it. It says that it took him 20 years to contemplate it, meaning it's not readily available. It's not said, okay, yin yang are together. But these things that I'm introducing today is something that gradually I'm myself contemplating for a long time, but I think each one of us needs to gradually ponder, and I will develop it, of course, more today. But this is the first concept, that we have this situation with the four seasons, and possibly the ancient wanted to say something. This has to do with the sun, these two, the spring and winter, not with the sun. Something else is going on, and this is the four seasons. I'm going to jump all the way to the end of this. I want to talk about another chapter which is called Gu. Gu means antiquity. And the first chapter of the Su Wen, of course, it's called Shanggu Tianzhen Lun, the heavenly truths of ancient antiquity. At least that's how we normally translate it. But I want to share with you like how my thinking process is different. How it's like should be not conventional when you try to reach at the truth, try to find out what the truth is. And this going conventional is not necessarily what we're looking for. So when you look at the Shuo Wen, the later Han dictionary, it says Wu Buye. Wu is a cause. It's a cause. And of course, the character itself, the conventional translation is that you have 10 generations and a mouse. 10 and a mouse. These are the two particles saying like 10 generations transmitted down, and this means ancient. Like for 10 generations talking down and transmitting it out. But when I look at it, I see something else. When I look at the ancient picture, I see something else which is related to this picture. To this picture of sun, above, which means above heaven, connected to somewhere else. Above heaven. And this picture is the same as the top. It's just that the lines are crossed. In this picture, the lines are not crossed. And remember, I said here, like you have a break. When we talk about above or earlier, we have a break. But if there's not a break, they are connected like this. They're joined together. But if these lines are like this, which gives us the top particle. Later on, of course, we have a concept called Jing Wei, the horizontal and vertical axis of life, where we enter and exit, etc. We'll talk a little bit about it more today. But this, both axes joining together, means that the life is happening. And a man and a mouse here, of course, means a man, a human being, a living human being. So when the Shuo Wen Jie says Wu is a cause, for me, this character means a cause. So, a cause for life, something that caused life to happen. So when I look, for example, and again, this whole sidetracking here, just to explain to you how my thinking is different than conventional. You find this sentence, for example, in the Neijing. It says if you follow it, the heavenly principles, the four seasons, etc., it causes the yang qi to be hu. Wu means solid or resilient, strong. But when I look at this character, right? But if I look at the Wu inside as differently, as a cause, outside there's a box, a shell. So what do you think the shell will be? What does the shell mean? If the inside means a cause of something to be alive. This principle, this line, this one line says if you follow the heaven, the season, the cycle, then the yang qi becomes this, which means solid, strong. So for me, solid, strong means that this cause is inside the body, like the box outside means the vessel, the human vessel. So you see that if you look like in a different way on the text, all of a sudden the meanings start to be different. So what is the yang qi that is strong? This is yang qi that is strong. No, but rather yang qi that is strong is yang qi that is contained inside the vessel. So I'm just sidelining here to show like a different thinking happens. There is yang within yin, there is yin within yang. What I'm adding is everybody knows it, but nobody understands it. Today we want to elaborate on it a little more. At the end, this leads us to what infertility treatment is. So we are looking to this chapter in the Su Wen, and we find this quote. And again, I'm not running away. This is related to the pictures that I showed before. It says in the middle, or in the midst of yin, whatever parentheses I'm adding, of course. In the middle of yin, there is yin. In the middle of yang, there is yang. And what I'm adding is that in the middle of pre-heaven yin, there is post-heaven yin. In the middle of pre-heaven yang, there is post-heaven yang. I'm introduced to me first, this concept. So what is it? This concept of yin within yin or yang within yang. So the Neijing explained to us, it says, look, it's like in the time. So let's talk about the daily cycle. This circle is the yearly cycle, lunar cycle, daily cycle, and everything, all the cyclical motions that we have here. It explains. It says, from dawn to midday, it is yang, or what we call pre-heaven yang, which means from this part to this part. He says this is yang, which for us equals to the sun. This is where we have sun on top. And it says in the middle, from midday to sunset, this is pre-heaven yang. So we have summer and we have fall. In the earlier pictures that I showed from the REM, you see that the summer and fall, they both have sun. The sun serves the function of yang, or what we call pre-heaven yang. Pre-heaven in this sense means, and we'll later talk about it a little more, the constant revolution of the heavens. Meaning it has nothing to do with my life. When I'm dying, the sun, the seasons keep on going. This is called constant. When we're talking about human life, we're shifting phase here to something else that we call post-heaven. But when we talk about pre-heaven or constant of nature, Lao Tzu calls it constant, or Chang, the summer and fall is what the Neijing call the pre-heaven yang. From this time to this time, from this time to this time. This is pre-heaven yang. It says, in the middle of pre-heaven yin, there is post-heaven yang. From dawn to midday, it is pre-heaven yang. In the middle of pre-heaven yang, there is post-heaven yang. So he's talking about something within the other, which means in the yang, there is yang. This belongs to the sun. When he talks about the fall, or he talks from midday to sunset, there is pre-heaven yang. And in the middle of the pre-heaven yang, there is yin. So this one, let's say we write it like this, post-heaven yin. Right, there's a broken line. The broken line is the yin line. The solid line is the yang. From beginning of the night to the rooster cry, this is pre-heaven yin. And in the middle of the pre-heaven yin, we have post-heaven yin. And then from the rooster cry to dawn, this is pre-heaven yin. And in the middle of pre-heaven yin, there is post-heaven yang. This is the description from the Neijing, from the Hunyuan. So when I'm trying to contemplate it, when they say yin, there is yin within yin within yang, like what are they trying to say? And this is related to the first characters that I introduced, the ancient characters. Winter, this is spring. So this one, we had sun on top, right? This one, we had sun on top. These two, we don't have sun on top on the character. That's why the pre-heaven has no yang. It's all yin. One showed the two, right? One we have this, and the other one we have the we have the door opening, the unity and the grass, right? This is for the spring. The winter we have this one. The fall we have this one. Summer we have this one. Summer, fall, winter, and spring. So this is the first description allowing us to meditate on this concept. Why this in this ancient time they would talk about this and they say within yang there is yang, within yang there is yin, within yin there is yin, within yin there is yang. And we'll develop. So this is like the first concept that we have, that the Neijing says there is something different between the yin-yang that goes outside, there is yin-yang that goes inside. And if you look at it, you see that they are different. Right? They're not parallel. Like you have yin here and yang here. This is the pre-heaven cycle of the sun and the season. When you talk about the post-heaven, this is the cycle inside. You have the yang this way, and the yin this way. And it carries with it many, many difficulties. When you keep on with the text, then there's different descriptions, and that's part of the work that we're doing, trying to solve this difficulty. Now we have this picture, the same picture, but no arranged with this cycle in the same sequence. So the spring and the summer, the fall and winter, and that's how the circle is going. And I wrote in parentheses explaining what the previous text was saying. So in the summer you have pre-heaven yang, and a plus means that in the inside of the circle there's yang. This one you have pre-heaven yang, but the inside of the circle is yin, a negative means the yin. When you get to winter, you have the pre-heaven yin on the outside. The inside is also yin. And when you get to spring, you have pre-heaven yin on the outside of the pre-heaven, but the inside is a plus, is a yang, what we call the shao yang. So of course, this gradually leads us to thinking about the six spheres or the six conformations. Talking about shao yang, tai yang, these are all here in this concept. Possibly, at least for me, when I'm thinking of Zhang Chongjing, who was in the later Han Dynasty, but possibly very close to other information that we may not have today. It is possible that he is closer to this kind of idea that we had there, that you can see in the Arya, this kind of description. And of course, from here it's all up to us to try to refine the truth. So this is this cycle with this picture. This is the initial concept. We're talking about pre-heaven versus post-heaven. Makes it dramatic. So I'm asking myself this question. So why do summer and fall have sun and men? Why does spring have unity with nature? Which is this yin outside and yang inside. These are the concepts. Later on we call this the shao yang and yin. What's the unity? This question, of course, we have to contemplate. Alright, so one of this is a little bit difficult to explain right off the bat, but at the beginning I told you that the winter sign of the skies are what we call above sky or earlier sky, which could be these two lines or these two lines. And the reason that you can have the this or that is there's a difference. Like what's the difference when they're broken? What's the difference to when they're joined? This is on a concept level. There is a difference. And if you try to meditate on it, you have a cycle. Right? The nature cycle we'll talk about a little bit later. It's called constant, chant. So this is different. This is just the outside cycle. If I'm dying or living, it doesn't matter. You know, like this heaven still keep on going. Or the sun, whatever they're doing, they keep on doing. When it comes to the post-heaven, meaning you connect this to the flesh and bones, make a living body, we go through the same cycles as nature. It's just that our life is limited. It's not, of course we want to be as long as possible, but it's not. And we're getting to this phase, which means I'm waking up in the morning, I feel great, I get tired, I go to sleep, I'm going into this phase. When I go into this phase, what do you think will be the difference if I have this versus this? Just from if you try to meditate on it. I do this, everything is good, I'm feeling great, I'm teaching the class today, I'm eating dinner, I'm going to sleep. And then I might have this, or I might have that. Both belongs to me. Like what will happen if I have this separate versus nothing? So this is a rhetoric question. I'm sure all of us are clear about that. But this is like one of the concepts that I'm thinking about. Why would you write this character in two different ways? And this is like this concept of end and beginning. Why do we keep on cycling for 100 years? At the end we expire. Some of us earlier, some of us later. Versus just one day. Like finish one day and expire. And this is like the answer possibly is in this. And we will develop it. So I want to also elaborate a little bit more that when we talk about the pre-heaven, which is the constant change of the universe, the revolution, meaning the constellation, the stars, the sun, the moon, etc. When I look at it, I'm trying to do this go, contemplating natural phenomena. The sun is the source of the pre-heaven yang, which is the summer and fall. This gives life. This is for the naked eye, you can see. Like if it's all, you cover something and there's no grass coming out. If you have sun on it, then things can grow. But what is the source of the pre-heaven yin? And from what I can see, in the winter and spring, the moon is the source, right? We have the sun and the moon. The moon is the source. And this moon, which we of course still need to think about a lot, is part of the issue that happens here. Because the moon, in a different quote in the Jing, I think in Yujie Changxiang, it says that 5 days is one ho, 3 ho is one qi, etc. And 4 qi is one shi, and 4 shi is one sui, 1 year, 1 season, etc. They talk about all the cyclical motions. The day cyclical motion, 5 days has a cycle, 15 days have a cycle, whatever it's related to the constellation or to the Dipper or whatever. Then the season have a cycle that repeats itself, and the year has a cycle that repeats itself. But it doesn't talk about the moon. It should be the 2 qis, 1 moon, because the moon also makes a cycle, right? Every 30 days we have this cycle, growing moon, declining moon. But it skips that. I'm asking myself why. And what I can contemplate is that the lunar cycle, from all this solar cycles, is different. This is a lunar cycle, or what I call a yin cycle. We'll try to talk about it a little bit more. But this is the moon, different than the sun. The sun doesn't wind and grows, even though it changes north and south, but it doesn't do this like the moon. Right? The moon has this action. All of a sudden it grows small until it disappears. All of a sudden it grows back again. And gets smaller till it disappears and grows back again. This is something the sun doesn't do. This motion is what I call yin cycle. This is this motion. So the sun gives life to earth. But in reality, when you look at the moon, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, the reason that we see the moon, and we know it today, is because it radiates the sunlight. It reflects. It doesn't have light of its own. Meaning the moon is relying on the sunlight to exist. So if you take the sun out of the equation, there's no moon. Or the moon is dark all the time, like you don't see it. It's like empty moon all the time. Because we have sun, and regardless what modern science will say, the angles or whatever, the fact is that because you have sunlight, the moon, for one reason or another, does this motion. Meaning disappearing and appearing, disappearing and appearing. So I conclude from that, the moon relies on the sun for its existence, but not vice versa. Meaning you take the moon out of the equation, the sun is still there. But this we're talking about the pre-heaven. The pre-heaven yin relies on the sun for its existence. But when we move into the post-heaven, the human life, meaning this sun-moon kind of a story connected to the flesh and bones, this is called post-heaven, not just rotating by themselves in the sky. Then the earth, the planet Earth, the earth is also our flesh and bone, the physical body, entirely depends on the moon for this. Because of, and I will show it in a later quote why, but because of this action of the moon, the body, our physical body, can exist, not because of the sun. So in other words, the post-heaven yin and yang entirely rely on this yin, on this function. This what I call later a heartbeat, lunar beat. So this I just want to explain this connection between who is relying on what. So the yang and the R supporting the yang score. We say, of course, the yang is the leader, and the yang is leading the moon. But without the moon, without the yin function, there is no life. So the yin actually is more important than the yang for us. But of course, we need to further explore what yin means. And yeah, so there's a lot of concepts that I'm introducing. So I'm gonna further explore it a little bit and talk about the numbers in this scenario. Now we all know the churku, right? The river picture. You have this. This is the river picture. The first 5 numbers, and then you have the completing numbers around. And this is like at the very ancient time, starting before the Arya and very early antiquity. This arrangement of the numbers. And I'm trying to get to understand, because of the numbers, and this picture is like what is the meaning? What few of the quotes in the Suwan, you see that it says heaven has 4 times and 5 advances or 5 phases. That's how they talk about heaven. 4 and 5. You have this. So I'm trying to understand what's the meaning. This is very important later on for us to understand infertility, how life starts and how to help bring babies about. Right? Again, forget about the ovarian failure and this kind of thing. But first I'm trying to understand what's 1 and 2. This is 1 and this is 2. Like you just look at the Chinese character or the symbolism of 1 line versus 2 lines. Like what does 1 line wants to do? When you compare 1 and 2 in the sense of unification and separation. Which one wants to separate, which one wants to unite? First let's try to contemplate this concept. So the 1, of course, is the unification. That's why we have 1. That's the number 1. Number 2, however, is different. So on the concept level, we try to understand what we call the gene axis, the vertical axis. We have this 1 and 2. The Neijing calls it entering and exiting. And if you explore the classics more, they talk about the spirit coming in and out, etc. This is all of this concept, 1 and 2. These are the first 2 numbers. First, for us to have life in the post-heaven, only the sun is not good enough. We have to have the moon too, and the moon is 1 or 2 versus the sun. Which one will be 1, which one will be 2? Which one will show unification, which one will show separation?
Moon is 2. Switch.
Sure. No problem, you can ignore me, you get the switch. So I need to think about it. So first, and this is, when I think a lot about yin yang, and later at the end of this class I'm talking about Tai Yin, Shao Yin, they are exactly talking about this concept 1 and 2, and they are completely interrelated, what we call externally, internally related, but you can't separate. The Tai Yang start from cold water in the north, the Shao Yin in the north start from heaven's heat in the south. They are completely related, the 1 and 2. But first we want to understand this concept. 1 means unity, 2 means separation. When we talk about summer versus winter, right? The leaves come out, the flower comes out, the trees, everything is coming out. I'm waking up, I'm jumping. Is this unity or separation? Do you think?
Separation.
Separation, right? In winter, when I go to sleep, everything is gone under the earth, hibernation. Is this separation or unity? Only when we have this separation and unity can we say that we have this post-heaven life. Meaning I go to sleep, I wake up. I go to sleep, I wake up. This is called unity, separation. This is one of the roots why we have 100 years to live. This is what life is all about. Let's say I'm just sleeping for 100 years. Can we say that I'm living? No. Even if I'm just moving all the time without stopping, you can't say that I'm living either. This is not what we know as life. Life for us is that I do this, look, I do this, and I bring the hand down. I don't do this and my hand goes to the ceiling, and from the ceiling goes to the sky. Right? We have this concept of separating, uniting, separating, uniting. So this is the initial concept, 1 and 2, which is very important for us to understand. The question is, what is 3 and 4? This is difficult because we are moving from this vertical axis into the horizontal way, into this realm, into our life. We have this picture. 3. When we talk about 4, we have this picture. So what happened when in the south things open up? Right? They open up. They want to go up. Right? They want to open. The flower wants to be more flower. And versus here, unity. They want to be unity. They want to unite together. Right? They join together. So you have one motion goes like this. You have one motion goes like this. So how do they communicate? Like what kind of life do we have? When the open up keeps on opening, the closing up keeps on closing. So when we talk about the post-heaven, we have this 3 and 4. 3 or 4 for me, from what I contemplate, is that you have 2, but with another line, which means it's an odd number, make it lopsided. Lopsided meaning the opening is not really going up. It's what we call going to the left. We're talking about the coming and going. Where we have the 4. The 4 means it's the step toward unity. The 4 helps the 2 close together. The 3 helps the 1 open up. Right? So this has to do, of course, with the 4 seasons. Between winter, spring to get to summer. From summer and fall to get to winter. So when we talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, we have this concept. But we talk about 5. Heaven has 4 seasons, right? 4 times, but 5 advances. The 5 is this one. The 5 means that we have all this 4 connected to this one, to the center. This means 5. Of course, we say it's the earth, center, earth, spleen, stomach, but which means all the flesh in the body and the bone, the physical body. So all this revolution, entering, exiting, left rising, right descending. Right? You have Shangjiang Churu, this concept, rising, descending, exiting, and entering. You have this circular motion, but this circular motion is useless if we don't have 5, which is connecting to the flesh. But I'm introducing this first concept. And it's just because Tim told me that, to go as hard as I can. That's why I'm just going philosophical. So in this spirit that we just talked about, we have this circle, what we call the pre-heaven circular motion, but we have the connection to the body. We see also this quote from the Neijing. It says, heaven covers and earth bare, so the myriad things live, come to life. When post-heaven did not come out of the earth yet, it is called yin place. Post-heaven did not come out, this is called yin place. It is called post-yin in the middle of pre-yin, which we portrayed before. And so when post-heaven comes out of the earth, it is called post-yang in the middle of pre-yin, which is this picture. Right? When we say pre-heaven, it's on the outside. Post-heaven is inside the city. Post-yang grants it uprightness, while pre-yin allows it a foundation. This is my translation.